All right. Just give the countdown.
3, 2, 1.
All right. So we just got done with the panels that were exclusively men, and the other panel was exclusively women, talking about our first thoughts within our relationship with this documentary and what we all experienced together. So once again, I want to thank everybody for participating in those conversations. Give yourselves a round of applause. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And so this last part of the conversation that we're going to get into, we wanted to bring everybody together. And we're going to focus a little bit more on the media, the public pressure, and this idea of forgiveness within the Central Park 5 documentary. And so this part of the conversation, anybody feel free to jump in. Wherever the conversation it leads, just feel comfortable, let it be organic. But how did you feel, the question off rip is, how do you feel the media played within this specific case?
Are you speaking of the media back in their time or like now?
In their time. We'll slowly timeline it back up to us.
Okay.
It was a spectacle. It was everywhere. I mean, we didn't have social media back then. A lot of us weren't even born back then.
Mm-hmm.
So what we know is what's on the internet now of it. But yeah, like it was this whole thing, and like everybody had something to say about it. Like I don't know if I'm gonna go that far yet, but like people felt dignified to take out full page ads.
I mean, talk about that.
Literal prosecutors were also saying things, talking to the media so it could be published in like magazines and newspapers. Like, come on, they're kids.
Initial thought? Anybody else want to?
I think it was kind of like once it hit the media, it became like a money thing. Everybody was just like, I got to get my shine, and that's why the prosecutors were even going so hard. Like that's why she was going so hard, because this was her time. She's like, all right, I can't let this go.
And do you think that kind of tainted it though too? Because
Yeah, definitely.
She originally, and let's just tease this. What's her name? Elizabeth Letterder. Elizabeth.
It was like
But for her in particular, she saw that there were holes in this case.
Yes.
But she chose to take it on anyways and make it into something else. So how do you think she was able to manipulate that power, essentially?
How was she able to do that?
Yeah.
As a white lady and 5 black kids being accused of this?
It was
That's
easy.
all they needed. They were found guilty before they even took trial.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I see it. When I was watching it, that's what I saw.
Right. And like, do you think this, and this is just me being facetious at this point, like the idea of race, do you think they were able to weaponize that throughout the media?
That's
Yes, absolutely.
When you listen to the press, like in the shows or the series, literally it's not questioning, do you think your son is innocent? It's, how do you feel about your son raping this woman in the park?
Right.
They're already guilty.
No questions asked. Like, it's like the prosecutors and the court system and the detectives set it up so that way that was what the press would like give to the public.
Yeah.
Yep.
They were
That's
pushing
it.
it.
You see it in the in one of the episodes where the prosecutor and her team are going around and they're going through like the timeline and they're like, the times don't add up.
Right.
And they're like, make it add up.
Yep.
So I knew, you knew what it was going to be off rip when she's like, make it add up, make the story add up. They didn't care whether they did it or not. They cared about them numbers,
Yep.
Prosecution rate.
Well, did anybody else pay attention to how black media versus white media was? Did you notice that there was
All
a
the
difference?
reporters were white.
All the reporters were white except for one.
The
There was
Latina?
yeah.
Yes.
And so I thought it was like very fascinating because
She was white too.
She was white passing.
Yeah.
TV Italian.
Facts.
That's all that is right there. I'm just calling it like
Call
it
a
is.
spade a spade.
Look, but I thought it was like interesting because they also had the protesters outside too, and so even then that added another dynamic to it. But what I wanted to touch on a little bit more was, do you think there were the pressure that the media had to put onto this case, and even depending on like who they were interviewing and how they were interviewing it too, how do you think that pressure put on the family, but that pressure also on the kids is my question, because they kept repeating this phrase, I never thought the world would hate me. I never thought I would grow up for the world to hate me. So like, how do you think that might have affected them a little differently?
I know, like, for example, when Corey Wise, that scene that they had with Corey Wise, when his mother was actually going to the prison the first time before she even knew he was locked up, she walked in to get on the phone, and the media, like, ran in right after her asking all these questions, like you're saying, can you believe your son did this rape? You know what I mean? And by just that, putting the pressure on the parents, like, they were losing jobs because of this. Right. You know what I mean? And I lost my train of thought, my bad.
And I think, like, back to, like, the media, I think that, like, even when you go to like Antron's dad, because like the cops approached him and just like, oh, I know what you did and this and that. Even the media had more of an effect on him, because I think after like the cops approached him, he was trying to be there, and then like the media added to it, and he's just like, he just totally withdrew himself. So like it tore the families apart as well.
Again, it was like I said earlier. Like again, they was prophets. You know, this had to become fulfilled, because you gotta understand, as a minor, you working with your mother. Why isn't news reported asking her about the death penalty?
Well,
and
speaking
Trump,
about that
you feel me?
scene in particular too, when she found out, when they all found out about the news and that Trump had taken out and that's where we're gonna move this conversation into. He took out a full page ad. He paid what, $85K for that ad?
4 different papers.
Look, and so even with that in itself, like, talk about how anybody jump in for this one. How does that complicate your relationship? Well, we don't really have complicated relationships with Trump. We already know how I feel about Trump.
You don't need to drop.
But even
Trump. Who's that?
Oh, exactly. You know what? You're right.
I don't know.
But with this in particular, how do you think that added into that public pressure too, to have to convict somebody?
White America wanted that to happen.
Yeah,
Point
they
blank
needed
period.
it.
They wanted it to
White lady got
happen.
raped. They got 5 black suspects. Roof on.
Yeah.
Period.
And I think for like Linda, it was just about her legacy. Like she was just like, we have to, like, I have to. She's like, I have to get this case. This has to be the one. It's like my legacy. Why do you think she wrote all those books?
And it got dropped.
She's probably gonna write another book. Even though she resigned, she's probably gonna write another one.
Somebody pick it up.
cooking, yeah.
Yeah, somebody pick it up.
I mean, the most powerful thing about it is, I guess somebody said it was 5 blacks. None of them was like, no, I'm not black. We got 4 blacks, 1 Latino.
Yeah.
Yep.
5 blacks.
Yeah, and that's that part right there.
And they stood. I mean, the kids, they like I said, man, they soldiers. They stood for truth.
Right.
They had to. Look how strong they was. That's even watching movies, so you can imagine what they went through in real life.
Right.
Like they slept on this.
Right. And so what I wanted to move this into now is like pushing the timeline down to us, and where that was like, so even the outrage we see on Twitter and all this other stuff with, now they are calling for Linda to get her shit taken away. Elizabeth, she's still a professor at Columbia. Law. She's law. So how do you think this, do you think a public shaming is just going to be enough? Or what do you think this is what this moves into now? Because I think we're in the age of social media, we can apply that pressure, especially black people. Black Twitter applies the pressure.
Yeah, period. I feel like when you related to like an education system, because I'm not gonna lie, like I didn't know about the Central Park like 5 case until now. We didn't learn about that in school. It's like we have all this responsibility as kids to like educate ourselves about stuff going on in our community. But when you have people who are actually involved in it, teaching at your schools, being in positions of like power and influence, it's just like, nah, hold them accountable. Like that's a no. They can't. She needs to like not have a job. And public shame doesn't do anything.
No.
I feel like let her teach. I feel like her punishment is her students. Her punishment and that guilt she has, let her go through this guilt trip.
She gonna quit
These
herself.
kids miss so many years. They're gonna be judged. They're gonna be judged. Prosecutors gonna be judged on a higher base. At the end of the day, the people that stood that time gonna get the victory. She's getting blamed. She's probably been blamed so long. She probably reached out to them. Forgive me for doing this.
You think so?
I feel like she need to go through this. I feel like she needs to, because you're gonna see black face all the time. You're gonna see a black male, black young lady, especially black sisters. They tearing up these D1 schools. So I mean, you gotta look upon. You're gonna see what you try to sit away. 10 times more is coming.
It's gonna keep doing
Let it.
I
Don't punish
think-
anything.
I mean, now looking at it, I think like it needs to spark a change with like the precincts in New York City. Like you need to go and rack over everything, because there's like, you have the Central Park 5, you have Khalif Browder, you have Mike Brown, you have all these things going on, and you're still not changing the main component. So I feel like with this like outrage and all the shame, it needs to go there. Like we need to start looking there.
Do you think this documentary will be that insight for change, though?
There's so
Because
many
that's
already.
that's what I was thinking. Because if you look at Corey's story, I was telling him in the other room, Corey's story is Khalif's story.
Yeah, that's what Rich just said. Yeah.
And so we're just like, wow, like they went through the exact same thing, but Khalif didn't make it. You know what I mean? And so when do you think it will happen? Honestly, I think it's until a white person goes through it. But like, but
Or dog.
Or dog.
Or-
Or lion.
but
No,
actually,
wait,
though,
Lion King's coming out soon. Don't say that.
I'm screaming.
I feel like it's gonna continue to happen.
Yeah, of course.
Of course.
It's
Because they said it's going to take at least 10 years to close Rikers.
Yeah. Why would you close it? You would close the biggest prison in New York.
10 million.
10 million a year.
I won't do that. I won't do that. Why? Because you putting more. Marijuana is about to be legal, so that means there's gonna be a fight over marijuana. I need another jail being built. Another kid gonna get rich. Somebody gonna kill another person.
And don't play, because they're thinking about making the commissioners who actually just got elected in Reading. They're thinking about building another prison behind BCP.
Trash.
Are you kidding me?
No, and they want to privatize BCP and the
Of course they do.
detention center.
Of course they do.
I feel like it's gonna continue to happen. Why? Because we getting more stronger and powerful. We getting to know who we are. People mentally stronger, and it's just like I said. It's all gonna be in the spiritual. They know who we are. When you're the original people, and you want to be them.
I don't know. I feel like social media does plays a big part, but I feel like sometimes you have to put your phone down and do actions. Because we can tweet about it, we can do this, we can do that, we can shame them, but it doesn't mean nothing if we're not out there doing that. And that's why I related to like Black Panther so much, because they're like, oh, well, we have to fight for us, we have to create things for us, and that's what we have to do for it to spark change.
I was telling one of the brothers during Ramadan, even going back to what Marie said, one of the brothers during Ramadan, I mean, the Sunni Muslims, they got mad at me. Right. All of them during the whole month of Ramadan, because I walked in there with the Nation of Islam t-shirt on. Like, I love Farrakhan. I mean, I do what I do, but I love Farrakhan. Like, what he stands for, he 89 years old, and he been fighting for years.
Right.
On the front for years. Whether you do bad or good, he's right there as a black man, he's there. Even the 5% nation, they don't like that.
Right.
You know, so, I mean...
Well, I wanted to move this conversation a little bit more into this idea of forgiveness. Like, this was throughout the entire thing. This is when the man came forth and was just like, I'm actually the one who did the crime. And they still didn't believe him. Nope. They still didn't. It was a white passing Latino who did it, right? But even other forms of forgiveness, too, was like, how do the 5 men, do they go through forgiveness? Do they forgive? Have they been forgiven? Well, have they been apologized to? But then you also have just the inner conflicts, too, of they all quickly had to forgive each other because they all had realized they were set up.
Yep. Right.
And then you also have Antron's story with his dad. And what does that look like when a parent fails a kid, too? You know what I mean? So, like, this idea of forgiveness, where did that leave all of you in your spirit when you were hearing this?
It's hard to comprehend.
Huh?
Honestly.
I actually, like I was saying during the women's panel, I didn't get through the whole thing. I only got to the second episode, and then that's when I was like, oh, I can't deal with this anymore. But I did research up on it afterwards, and I saw that Antoine couldn't forgive his father, and that's tough. And I don't know how I would feel in the situation as a young black man. Like, the only person that's supposed to be there for you and supposed to have your back is your father. And from when I did get through it, they said the father was thinking that he was doing the right thing for her. He thought he was doing the right thing, which goes to show you how the justice system is. It's like, he's a grown-ass man, and he doesn't know any better. Because of his skin color, he already knew that his son didn't have a fighting chance. So he tried to do the best thing that he could do for his son. And I don't know, forgiveness is tough. As a Christian, yeah, I'm going to bring that in here.
I think plenty of religions showed it.
Okay, great. So, like, as a Christian, it's tough because the first thing you learn as a Christian is to forgive. You're supposed to forgive, and I am struggling with that watching this. I don't forgive anyone that was complicit in these boys, these young 14, 15-year-old boys going to prison.
Well, I think it's interesting that you bring up this idea of forgiveness, too, and correlate it with religion, because at the end, it was because the original perpetrator found his religion, and he needed that forgiveness in order to move on. And that's what it took for him to kind of learn. So I do think, like, religion motifs were throughout this entire film.
I mean, you could go through the Jesus and the Judas situation, or Jesus on the cross with the guy. You know, when he asked for forgive him, or Jesus and Peter.
Right. I was gonna say, because you peep there's this image when he finds out that he's being free. It's Corey and then Jesus right behind him on the cross. And I thought that was interesting because you brought up this idea of a prophet and like, wow, they had to be a sacrifice.
I feel like all of them, going back to what you were saying about forgiveness, it's for every black man that stayed at home, a black man in America. You gotta think about Yusef probably had to forgive his mother for isolating herself, or Corey.
Yeah, because Yusef
Tron and his dad, Corey forgiving his mother
for his sister.
For his sister.
You feel me? So they all at once has to forgive the world.
Somebody had it, yeah. But
And
the
then
world
inmate,
never.
The inmate on the yard. I mean, if that was me in that situation,
Would you have been able to forgive him?
I probably would have took him out right there in that yard
Yeah, that's 13 years of your life.
Mm-hmm.
because you knew I didn't do it. Plus, you did time with me in another prison.
Mm-hmm. You know who I am.
You
Yeah.
know
Because he
why-
changed
You
it when
know
they were
why.
playing DMX.
Of course.
Turn that shit
Oh, he
down.
turned it down. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, he had to forgive himself. I think for him speaking to Corey, that's his way of saying, "Brother, please forgive me." Then he admitted. So that started a whole nother case, a whole nother trial, a whole nother freedom trial.
And even like with Antron, like he had to like forgive his mom for taking his dad back in, and forgive his dad for
Yeah,
just
I forgot
leaving him.
about that, yeah.
So it's just like, and he didn't even he forgave him like when it was like almost too late.
Right.
So it's just like that was like haunting him, and there was nothing but like forgiveness out there. Like even Raymond's dad was just like he felt he was the reason why he was in this mess because he told him to go to Central Park. He was like, no, you don't need to be on the block. You should just go to the park
Right.
somewhere.
Yeah.
So his dad had to forgive him. He had to like, and it's even like with like his grandma too, because his grandma was mad like, oh, but I don't have my whole family here and stuff like that.
That's the first thing that got me, actually.
Raymond's dad, was that his girlfriend?
His wife.
His wife.
His wife. Would you forgive her for calling the cops?
Hell no.
Wait, she called a cop?
She said she would, and then immediately after,
Oh,
that's when he
man,
got
she
arrested.
did.
That's when he got arrested.
No, well, I mean that goes back to this media pressure though
True,
too, because
that's true.
remember after they had gotten out, they had an infamous case. Like
Yep.
even Corey inside of prison, they were like, "Oh, we know who you are. We watched your case throughout the entire thing."
Right.
So when you're so like when you're already deemed a rapist
Mhm.
inside of prison,
Mm-hmm.
then
Come out.
you're fucked.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like that was a poor choice of words. Like that's terrible.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah,
that
no,
was-
I realized I was like, that's nope. We're gonna cut that. Cut. Right. But I do think like even for that in that situation, it was difficult because when they got out of work, I think it was not Kevin. I think it was Antron. He was with that girl at the movie theater,
Yeah.
and he could, and she kept asking like, you can't, like she didn't. It seemed like she didn't know until they broke up, and she was like,
Yeah,
"Oh, you're
yeah.
probably just treating him like the
She
women
knew.
the whole time," and she
I
was.
think she did.
I think she
and wanted
knew.
a reason to like be like, well, F you, like you're this, you're what they said you were in the news.
Right.
That's when you look at
Yeah.
that scene, you be like, black woman, you are.
And that's the thing, you
Just
have to
like a
also
woman.
look at like were black women forgiving these men,
Yeah.
especially like because the mothers knew they didn't do it, but were other black women like forgiving these men?
I don't think so. Like when you say men, you're talking about who are
The
you talking?
five.
The five.
Yeah.
And what do they have to forget? Like I didn't get through the third and fourth episode. So what did they do that would need forgiveness? Because I thought they were the sheep.
I
Well-
feel like
Well,
A lot of people didn't believe like
believe
okay
them.
the
That was that
believe
media
there.
frenzy.
Yeah, because you didn't know that they didn't do it until like the end of the last episode.
Yeah.
That movie was therapy. It was
Yeah.
life's lesson. It go to show you like, if I blink of eye, you can see your kid through the park.
Yeah.
Or you.
come back home.
That's what I got out of it the most because I just think about like when I
Park
was
is an innocent
when I
space.
was
Like, when you
14,
think about that, that
15, we would be at the
represents
park wilding.
Knocking on the
Yeah.
door.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Knock on the door, run.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, we.
you. One at a time.
Yeah, it's because it just ran. It's
Yeah,
just
but like,
it's crazy
14,
because we
15.
was all tripping back then. You know what I mean? Well, not tripping, but we was all we acting like kids
Yeah.
exactly.
Hey, yo, Spud, we're going to the park.
Right.
Go play basketball, get daring, get unique,
Right,
whatever.
right.
And then we're
exactly.
suspects for a rape case because I
Yeah.
wanted to go have fun.
And
You know
y'all
what's-
don't even know each other.
yeah,
Right.
was the
So-
fact
right.
that one of their charges was for organized rioting.
Riot, yeah.
Like
Oh,
what?
yeah, yeah,
like
yeah,
black
yeah,
kids
Corey
can't
got
just get
signed.
together
Well,
and congregate.
You
and
actually
have fun.
made me think about two things. You remember when we were playing Manhunt and the
Mhm.
cops got called on us? Were you there for that?
I remember that.
Because the cops got called on us for playing
Wait,
Manhunt
did
because there was a
this
bunch of niggas running around.
No, this was
They
in high
did
school.
high school.
It's a bunch of little niggas
We
running
were
around.
like,
No.
no,
Reinforcements.
We ain't got time.
over
for
by
that.
Equal Ave.
But even you mentioning
It
that
would be
it was
fun,
like this
yeah.
idea of a riot. You remember that thing where they were like, you're not allowed to walk around in a group more than like, what was it, 8 people, or you're
Mhm.
considered a gang.
yeah.
Yeah, so that's
Exactly.
that's like that inherent criminalism, and we dealt with that in Reading too. They were like,
Yes.
"Don't deal with that," and so it like more and more some of these things like you're bringing back like, whoa, we were going through all of that, and we made jokes, but we didn't really understand like where that came from.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I thought that was like very fascinating to kind of have to bring that home a little bit. And what I want to get into right now, do you think would you be able to forgive them for stealing your childhood?
No.
But do we also, as Black people, do we also get to experience a childhood?
No.
Is my
Right.
question.
No.
They didn't even have the opportunity. And I'm not gonna say like any kid is better than anyone, but I think specifically to Yusuf, he was so
Right.
innocent. And Kevin,
Yeah.
like, he was just a music student. He was like, I want to sit first seat at church, like playing the trumpet.
That scene killed me.
Yusuf was just like
That
really
cinematography,
into
though.
school. They didn't get that opportunity to even experience like what it's like to finish an education, go to school, have fun with your friends, eat lunch together, fall in love. Like,
Yeah, I love that.
Be
even
humans.
coming out, like the
Be humans.
relationships they were in were so different from what they thought it was. They had so much to carry with them.
You saw that even when Yusuf got out, and he was just like, I want to be a teacher, and then he was like, you can't be a teacher.
Yeah.
Like that part. Yeah,
I was
because
like, wow, he like you could tell when you seen him in that scene that he was just like, what? And then when you see him working at Starbucks, I'm like, damn, he should be a professor somewhere.
Right.
I'm like,
he's a
damn.
professor now, so we out here.
Yeah, now, but still.
The good thing is they never lost hope.
Right.
That's through the whole movie. Neither one they didn't lose hope. Even, I mean, yeah, they got sentenced. You had guilty. You like, alright.
Well, now Corey did lose hope a little bit at the end when he stopped going to his parole hearings and
He
shit
didn't
like
lose
that.
hope. I think he
So
he didn't lose hope.
I was gonna say that. You want to talk about the power move?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a power move. I agree.
I think
Because
literally trying to force him to admit to something he didn't do that like a lot of people knew he didn't do, and then to tease that, literally holding your freedom. Just say you raped this woman. Just say you did that.
Right.
Years after the fact, he's like, I'm not gonna subject myself to this. I know my rights now. Like before, they said sign this paper and you're free, and then wrote more than they told him on the paper, and he ended up taking a longer sentence than
because he
everyone
said
else.
he didn't write that.
He didn't write
But
it.
with that, it was actually, there was an interview that came out recently with Corey, and he was like, the reason he didn't go back to his parole thing is because every single time he went back, every 90 days, they would add on 2 more years. And so he's like, there's no point in him going back to his parole because they would just tack on because they wanted him to admit it. And so just seeing the pain on his eyes at his age now, and he's still like thinking about that, seeing some of their modern day interviews, I'm just like,
Wait, so there's an interview that he said that they were adding 2 years.
they kept adding on more and more. Yeah. So just look up the hashtag Corey Wise and you'll see the interview somewhere.
And that wasn't even, like, she said that they didn't even portray everything he went through in jail. Like, in those scenes, there was a lot more that he went through.
Oh, there might be
13 years.
Yeah, he was a young
They
boy
probably,
too.
yeah,
I know they was.
Just for seeing that, yeah, you could
Well, I was
tell.
gonna also say, like, I think it was because even in the doc, though, like the 3rd episode, you didn't really see. You saw them interact with their families. You saw that. You didn't actually see like everything that these boys went through in the detention center.
Exactly.
They only showed like here's the beginning of it and dealing with that and having that family unit versus them actually being in there in that process. We only saw Corey's trauma. We didn't see everybody else's. And I think that's one part where I'm actually kind of glad that they didn't show that.
That would have been a lot.
Yeah, because Corey's was too much. But it was interesting because they had also forgotten about Corey and some things. They were like, oh, well, you're all out now. And they were like, no, there's 5 of us.
Yusuf and Corey kind of went through the same. I mean, Corey got the natural abuse, but Yusuf got the mental abuse. He was Christian when he was on the street. His mother made him turn Muslim in jail for protection.
Yep.
Right.
And that's crazy. Because if you look through her whole court case, she had the Nation of Islam with her. She had brothers with her.
Yep, because you saw Kevin.
Yeah.
They had left each other. They had
Exactly.
separated. He was like, well, Yusuf's with the Muslim kids now. Like,
Exactly.
he
That
doesn't
is a
fit
power
in.
move though. I might have did the same thing if I was locked up. No cap.
And them just like,
Survival.
yeah,
It's
they all
interesting.
just try to survive. Even like with Ray, he was just like finessing people, giving them money or giving them whatever they can get.
Nah,
Yeah, like they
right.
all just tried to survive. Even and they split apart because they were so close. Like during like the prosecuting and the conviction, they were all so close. And then they got into the detention center and they just all separated.
You had guilty, then you had that little saxophone go off.
Oh, that with the handcuff,
The,
that
the
part,
cinematography in that was
it destroyed me.
I
Oh,
feel like
that
if we
connection.
all dig deep into that, we ain't going to read. Like I'm not trying to dig no more deep because I don't want to know. That's why I ain't watching. That's why actually I'm like, wait, there's real audio with them. There's
Yeah,
real.
there's
When
real.
y'all told me,
Yeah,
I would not
I
watch.
seen Corey's, the
Yeah,
audio
Corey's
Corey's
is
and
If
cool.
I couldn't handle that, imagine you dig deep.
Right, right.
Yeah, because that's just, and that's, I think, where I want to leave this last part off before we go. We went through the media, we went through the public pressure, we went through the idea of forgiveness. But I do want to tease a little bit more out of, I know we alluded to, like, why we didn't watch these things and this idea of Black trauma continuously, like, being put out there. Like, what is, do you think this was good to be put out there? Do you think this was something for us to have to watch? Do you think this is something for white people to have to watch? Because we critiqued, like, it's why, like, having this conversation, there's so many motifs of hope, forgiveness, loss of hope, the critique of the system, the critique of media, and how these all interlock with one another for a black person to have to survive. And, like, that idea of spirituality that Brian Retro brought up, like, that even adds into a little more of it of, like, how is this helping get through that? So what do you think, like, was this for us or was this for everybody else?
It was for us.
I think it was for everybody.
I think it was for everybody. I think, like, we can do our research, like, as black people and see it one way and understand how this could happen. But the thing about Ava, too, is, like, in her short films and things like that, her series, she clearly explains, like, morals and the relationships with people who have power and the people who do not have power. Like, it's very cut, clear, and dry, and you can see the differences. So I think, like y'all were saying, I think it was for everybody, because, like, we can understand it one way, but, like, to have it broken down in that way for other people who are not like us in this room, they can understand it as well.
Oh, I was just gonna say, it's kind of like those films where, like Ash said, like, it's get to the point, see what you get, but the directors often put, like, little something in there so that we pick up on it.
Yeah.
Like, even the picture you shared with Kevin with the trumpet and the handcuff, I related that to Fences.
Yeah.
With the trumpet.
Yep.
Like,
and do you think trumpet jazz?
Yes.
And that's a thing of pain, and he had lost it.
Back to the field.
So it's definitely, like, something in the background. We can pick it up and let it be therapeutic for us, aside from, like, what you see on the surface. But it's definitely something that anyone can watch and understand why it's wrong.
I feel like it's going to decrease the murder rate probably this summer. If you're mentally smart, you watch that, it probably saved us. Because we don't know brothers and sisters dying this summer. So you watch that.
Summertime is here,
Yes,
and
it
this
is.
is such a
Full force.
trash time.
Everybody get their gun game right in the middle of the summer.
That's right.
Thanks.
That's right.
I was gonna say, for you to protect your energy, though, do you think, like, how was that for you? Like, was that like an act of rebellion or an act of almost like liberation for you not to have to experience that over again?
For me, to protect my energy, my mental state, my emotional state, because I get emotionally involved with stuff like this. It's just automatically how I am. So that's one of the reasons why I chose not to watch it. Like, I support them. I support everybody here who watches it and whatnot. But for me, I cannot watch that. Like, I'm not. And my mom was in Jersey when it happened. So my mom was telling me from her point of view. My mom even said she can't watch it because she remember she was watching it. Almost like the OJ trial, she was watching it all the time.
Well, that was a spectacle I actually meant to, like, allude to earlier, is because we had a similar. These kids were innocent. We don't. OJ, you know, I'm not saying if he was or he wasn't.
We know the truth on that
The
one.
way we was watching it.
Yeah. But you were looking for that, and well, everybody else, like, did you think this was for you? Did you think this was for everybody, or just this was white people need to watch this?
No. I honestly think everybody should watch it. And not even, like, because y'all did mention everybody having hope and stuff like that, but just how they actually, like, at the end of the movie especially, like, you know how she, like, the one, I forget what her name is, forgive me, but when she was like, how would you think 5 guys did this when there's not even 5 footprints? There was not even 5 footprints here. Like, I feel like everybody needs to see this just to see how flawed the law system is and how they just wanna yeah, they just want to pick somebody.
Fit that narrative, which I know you talked about a little bit, Ashley, was the perceived innocence of white women.
Oh, yeah.
And do you want to jump into that just a little bit on how that not only played into, when we talk about this idea of forgiveness, who's allowed to have the forgiveness, but this perceived innocence right away.
Yeah, so, like,
that
since
added on to the frenzy.
Yeah, like, since this country's inception, it's always been protect white women. Always, at any cost, to who, whatever. So, like, I remember reading, like, Shorty didn't even remember what happened.
Yeah.
She did not.
She didn't. She had no idea. She had no
We don't want
recollection.
to also take away from the fact that
She was
they
like,
actually
shit.
used her, they weaponized her white womanhood
Yes.
against the black men.
Yes.
Black boys, my bad. The
Black boys.
Yeah.
Black
Like, they
children.
used it against them because they understood optic-wise.
Yep, the dynamic.
They have that dynamic there.
Yep, yep.
I didn't even think of that. That's crazy.
They are able to weaponize.
They weaponize white women.
All the
Yeah,
time.
but they've always been violent.
Damn.
White women have always been violent. Remember,
Yes.
white women manipulated other white women.
Yep.
to get what they wanted,
Yeah.
right?
The only time it does not work is if it's white men.
Yeah.
That is it.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody else.
Because men just always get the short end of the stick.
And real quick, what I didn't realize, sorry, this is like, Felicity Huffman, the actress, she was in the college scandal.
Yeah, she's.
I was like, she's corrupt in the movie. She's corrupt in real life.
Oh, shit. That's her.
That's
she's
her.
Linda, right? She's Linda.
Yeah, that's
Thirsty.
Linda. And so that, like, that, I was like, wow, that's wild how life imitates art.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy.
They probably been filming this shit too.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you Saudi now, huh? They hate you in the movie world and in real life.
I was like, that's probably why she felt.
Your whole life you've been told truth set you free. And the whole movie was straight lies.
And
Which
it
is,
set them free.
it only said, wow, yeah. I don't know, Retro, you've been dropping gems this whole time.
Yeah, he has, yo.
Like,
That's crazy.
I would have tripped her. That's just me. Once they would have said guilty, I probably would have went off.
Yeah, no cap. I'd have been
I'm like, yo, you don't see
I would have
my
been in
eye?
that courtroom.
Like, I got a
going
whole
the
black
fuck
eye right
off.
here.
That was Corey. That was literally Corey saying.
Nah, I would have got a hit off on
Like,
somebody. They would have been
I
able
know,
to charge
I've
me for
seen
something I
pictures,
really
photographs of
did.
him just like.
Yeah,
But yeah,
Corey.
the whole case was just straight lies.
Right. All right. So I think how I want to officially end this off, I would say we're gonna end this off. They're like preface. We're gonna end it off. But I just want to know everybody's takeaway from this documentary. How has this transformed you? Like, what was that process like going through it? And take a little bit of time to think if you need to.
I think it made me more hyper aware of like how I'm thinking about how I'm going to raise my children.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's like I already knew, this is the way I should be feeling, how I should raise my children, but now it's like, no, make sure they know their rights as soon as possible.
Yeah.
And like that's my main takeaway. Like, and keep myself informed as well, but my kids especially.
We can just go around this way, yeah.
I think it's made me just want to like educate myself more on things going on, cause like I think we
you're
all
studying psychology too.
Yeah.
You're gonna to get into there.
It's just like annoying. I was fortunate enough to like grow up with an aunt who like my uncle was in the Black Panthers here in Reading.
You know what it is.
And like I would hear certain things about like what's going on in the city, but like for the most part growing up there's always like these gaps where you're like, how did I not know about that? And that's how I felt with this movie. I was just like, this should have been taught in school. Like, so it definitely made me just want to like research more and also just really have more conversations with people, because I felt like we all really needed to like chat about this. Super therapeutic, a little traumatizing, but like at the same time it's just nice to just be with people who look like you and just really get it out.
Yes.
Like,
Love black people.
I love my people.
That's a fact. Every shade.
Yeah, I basically, if you give a man a fish, he eat for a day. But if you teach him how to fish, he eat for a lifetime. Which meaning, worst case scenario, always stand on your truth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just stand on top of it. You may fall down, but just stand on your truth. That's all.
Retro in his bag. Mm-hmm.
J Electronica. That's what happens when you listen to Farrakhan, man. He just hit you, man. Stand on your truth, man.
Basically, it's a lot. Like, I always sit here getting mad again. Because, like, Amanda said, like, being here with your own and, like, different generations besides my mom and then our generation makes me rethink, definitely when I have kids, even with my younger cousins, you need to watch this. Or at least I tell them about it. Like, my kids at work, he had no clue who it was. He called today. He was like, I can't watch that. I was like, that's okay, but you need to know who they are and what happened, because this is why I tell you, when you walk like this, you have to pull your pants up, because you really got to strike against you, unfortunately. So this is making me rethink to keep going, to get my inner activist on and keep doing what I'm doing. So this just makes me, I'm mad, but I'm going to keep it moving. But keep this as a reminder.
You got something to be mad about.
This, I appreciate this because, like Mandy, I have not watched this yet. I've seen clips of it, pictures, screen grabs. So this going into it, I feel like was super helpful, because now I feel like I can start.
Right.
Accidentally go. Yes. Like, I'm gonna be upset. I already know I'm gonna be crying, but right. But this really helped. Definitely.
What I'm gonna take at it, because I actually watched it again today before I came in here. Yeah, I watched it twice. I was at work. I was bored, so I watched it again. And just like what Dede was saying, it just makes me more conscious of how I want to raise my son, because like seeing how most of these parents didn't know like that they didn't have, like, except Yusuf's mom, they didn't have to answer any questions without the parent being there. So I just want to, because in school they don't teach kids laws, which they should. That should be where it starts, but that's a whole nother story.
Black and brown kids.
Right, exactly. Especially being in the inner city, in the urban area, you should want to teach the laws of kids at a younger age rather than when we get to high school and we could choose if we want to take criminal justice or not. Right. But I just want to make sure that my son has all the tools so he could be successful and stay out of prison, basically, and also myself. But I'm good. I'm straight.
Make sure it's a good childhood,
Yeah, exactly.
A kid as long as possible.
Exactly.
I took away like the same thing like Marcel and Dede said, like just wanting to educate my kids, but also taking it a step further and like mentoring kids that look like me and that look like us in this room, because it's like sometimes their parents can't do it, and like if you can extend that and just help them out, just like this is what you need to know, this is what, like, you can change the narrative now and go from there.
I'm not having children, so there's that.
Well, I said the same thing, and I already got it.
Surprise, motherfucker.
Facts.
Well, what is something? Yeah, what transformed you, at least from that little bit, or this conversation?
Ask the question again.
Like, how did this transform you?
This didn't transform me, to be frank. It actually just made me mad at everybody else, because like I watched it with a girlfriend and it's so many people who were upset, and it really gets to the point that it's like, okay, you guys hashtagged it out, and much respect to the people who got Linda Fairstein removed from her positions of power, but at the same time it's just like, okay, but are you going to NAACP meeting? Are you trying to now help in your community? Like, is it going to be where it's like, damn, that's crazy, and then we forget about it? Like, we're so used to, and that's the thing, like, I didn't want to watch the show because it's freaking traumatic. Like, especially to me, who I'm still, like, I still live in that circle. We all live in this environment that hasn't changed. 1989 might as well be 2019, but just with better drugs. Right. So for me, it's just like, I didn't want to watch something that is going to it's going to just reopen wounds for me. And yeah, I was mad. I know why this would have to be made. They deserve the story to be told, and there's children who need to watch this. But personally for me, it was just like watching a snuff film, Oh
shit, yeah.
What did you take away from it, Marquise?
Just for me, it was why I wanted to have this as more of a panel. Like, it's really what incited that, is because I think it's something that we need to start doing as a community, is collectively processing and knowing where we're all standing. Like, is that you good, bro? Like, you all right? Y'all just all right? We went through this. All right, we're gonna talk through this together. But that's why I was like, let's create this space where it can be like it's a private but public dialogue that we're having. But it's a way to witness how we all have to process. We process in 10 different ways. Like, even with Kamal here earlier, like those conversations, like hearing a black woman's perspective versus the black men's perspective, but then hearing us all in one room together and having like this healthy dialogue and exchange. I think that's the transformative part, because now I see the power that just media can have and this film and this storytelling can have. But when we all are activated together, how did we, now it's like, always ask that question, Martin Luther King, where do we go from here? And like, how do we go moving forward? So just like, that's where that's at. Cool.
Mother Solange lyric.
Where do we go from here? So here we go. I was listening to Solange before we got in, and I was just like,
me too.
I was like, I need that therapy moment.
I was like,
I'm weary of the ways of the world. Yeah. But no, I think this was a really good dialogue to have. Thank you all once again. Give me a round of applause for joining me with that side eye. Appreciate y'all. Thank you once again. Look out because we're going to be debuting this as a Facebook Watch event so we can all see this kind of premiere together. But it will also be released in a video format as well. So we want to do something a little different with this episode. But you can still get this as a podcast 8 a.m. tomorrow morning to hear the different series. So thank you. And last thing for a church announcement. This Friday at Goggleworks for the Juneteenth event, they are actually going to be doing a big celebration here at 6 p.m. So you feel the need to come through. They'll be honoring some people. There will be spoken word. There will be bigger names here and stuff like that. So if you can get a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend, come through and go from there. Cool?
Sounds good.
Alrighty, we out.
Explain what Juneteenth is again.
We're going to explain that next episode.